So, coming up in Lecture 3 Part 5, we are going to learn about Dadirri. Now, I've had some material that's been emotionally tough in the last few sessions, so today we're going to offer ourselves a positive way forward. So, yeah, we can cheer up a bit in this one.
Shut up and sit down.
Okay. Oh, okay. Perhaps I'm actually soaking in sweat. I'm going to drown in my own puddle of sweat by the end of this bit. I've been doing the last 3 videos one after the other, and I've had the air conditioning's off. And boy, it's hot right now. I don't know if you can see, but I'm absolutely soaking. The sacrifices I'm making for you. I'm having to get all of this recording done because I can't do any recording during our residential school, and I need to get these lectures out for you ready at least a week ahead. So yeah, taking one for the team, as they say. Anyway, let's crack on. Let's crack on. But if you do actually just see a waterfall coming down, yeah, don't be alarmed. I'm sure I'll be fine, rehydrated by the time I see you at the residential school. Okay, crack on, come on. Time is not on our side. So, Dadirri. Now, this is an Indigenous Australian research methodology. And I'll talk you through a bit of this, but we're going to have a couple of external people speaking via a couple of external videos that I've given some links to. And those videos will give you a much richer understanding of this Indigenous methodology. Now, Dadirri is both an Indigenous philosophy informing investigative processes and ethical cultural behaviour in research. It's been put forward as a culturally safe methodological approach to research within Aboriginal communities. It's also a way of life. The Dadirri belongs to the language. The word Dadirri belongs to the language of the. Oh. I'm going to have a go at this. I really apologise if. Well, I'm going to get it wrong. No disrespect intended, okay? But here we go. Nangik Kurgunkur people. Nangik and Kurkur people. Did I get away with that? God, I'm bad enough with speaking English, let alone another language. Anyway, it's written up on the slide. So it comes from the Nanga Kilko people. Anyway, I'll tell you where they're from. They're from the Dadirri River. I'll probably pronounce that wrong as well. Jeez, well, man. The Dadirri River, the Northern Territory. I can say Northern Territory. I think I've got that right. Okay, but so it comes from that region and from those people. However, there's an equivalent language for similar practices in many other Indigenous groups. It's not just about that people and from that part of country. Now, I want to play you the video where Miriam Rose Ungunama. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Miriam Rose Ungunma. It should be so easy. Why can't I just read and talk? I don't know. I'll master this skill one day. Anyway, Miriam Rose, she'll tell us all about this approach. So here's the video.
To know me is to breathe with me. To breathe with me is to listen deeply. To listen deeply is to connect. It's a sound. The sound of deep calling to deep. Dadirri, the deep inner spring inside us. We call on it, and it calls on us. We are river people. We cannot hurry the river. We need to move with the current and understand its ways. We wait for the rain to fill our rivers and water our thirsty earth. We watch our bush foods and wait for them to open before we gather them. We wait for our young people as they grow. The time for rebirth is now. If our culture is alive and strong and respected, it will grow. It will not die, and our spirit will not die. I believe that the spirit of Dadirri that we have to offer will blossom and grow, not just within ourselves, but in our whole nation.
Hey, wasn't that beautiful? You know, such a wonderfully connected way of life. I tell you what, that way of life looks a lot better than the rushing around chaotic life I have to live. You know, a life that's disconnected, disjointed, where the only places I find meaning are in consumer goods, you know, and crappy TV. Anyway, enough about my midlife crisis. Let's crack on with the topic, eh? Now, here's some of the key principles of Dadirri. This kind of captures that approach. It reflects that Indigenous framework we've been talking about in the previous parts of this lecture. So here, all people matter, all of us belong, and there's a focus on intersubjectivity. You know, all parts are connected, and meaning occurs in those spaces between people. So research informed by Dadirri honours these connections between people. It also promotes a reciprocal relationship between researcher and researched, sharing experience and information. Now, this will probably be something that will feel very odd to you.
It's very strange.
You know, you've likely been trained to undertake research where you're the collector of data. You don't tell participants what you think. You know, participants are there to tell you what they think. Now, this Dadirri-informed approach raises interesting discussions, not least some really interesting discussions around ethics of researchers disclosing their own views to their participants.
This week is not about me, it is about you.
I bet some of you are going to struggle with this. Now, the authors in our prescribed text discuss some of the challenges this way of working, this more reciprocal way of working, raises. I hope you have a read of that, and I also hope that you have some discussion on this on the Moodle discussion site, because it gets really interesting when we start talking this through. Now, the third key principle is about being reflexive. It's about reflexivity, and this has strong connections to qualitative research. The fourth, fifth, and sixth principles take us still deeper into understanding research. So number 4, all actions have meaning. Dadirri seeks to find the source of a person's pain for a deepening understanding of that person. And this links back to what we were talking about previously, you know, the deep traumas that Aboriginal people have experienced in the past. It's something that informs the experience of Aboriginal people in the present, today. And when people say, hey, get over it, you know, it happened a long time ago.
Let it go, let it go.
It didn't happen to you. The people it happened to are dead now. Well, that's a bit of a harsh response to people pointing out what happened during colonization when when the Brits invaded Australia. It was a bit harsh response, but it's actually not just a harsh, blunt response, it's also ignorant of the Aboriginal knowledge system, you know, that connects the living with the dead. So from a Dadirri perspective, research needs to help people access the source of that pain, and that pain can be deeply connected to the stories of ancestors, but also to land, what's happened to land, to country. Number 5, knowledge building includes observing pain, anger, grief expressed by the body and through feelings. So this builds on point 4, but also signals a shift away from a reliance on words and oral communication, but also that reliance on written text. You know, it's saying that we've got to attend to more other forms by which we communicate. You know, we communicate through our bodies. Now, this is such an important channel of communication, which in Anglo-European cultures can sometimes be neglected, and it's particularly neglected in Anglo-European based research. You know, our research tends to be very much, particularly in qualitative research, in an oral tradition. You know, we ask people things and we listen to what they say.
Must be nice having an excuse not to talk.
The next time you're watching the news, and there's a signer there to interpret for the deaf, watch how important body language is there in terms of the expression of emotion that the signer is giving. Not just the words, but their use of their body. They express emotion through the use of the body to be able to communicate properly through sign language. Okay. Now, number 6, having learned from the listening, there is a responsibility to develop a purposeful plan to act. It's not just enough to listen, but you've got to act on what you hear about. So it contrasts with the default position of Anglo-European research, which often just positions the researcher as only responsible for documenting what people are saying. So it's kind of the researcher just documents distress, and it's up to other people to engage in action to remove the distress. You know, it's like, I'm a researcher. I just present the data. It's up to other people to do something with the data, or to take some action or make some intervention.
Besides, it's not my fault. I'm not responsible.
That's the default position for Anglo-European research. There's other people who are responsible for engaging in the action. Now, under Dadirri paradigm or methodology, there's an ethical responsibility to act on your findings. If you find that people are in pain, you as a researcher have a responsibility to assist them to heal. Now, this resonates with approaches like action research and participatory action research. I'm not going to talk about them with you, but if you're interested in them, have a look for these things. They're really powerful and useful methodologies. These are areas that have been particularly developed and particularly useful in qualitative research. Now, here we're drawing on the work of Judy Atkinson, who undertook some research informed by a Dadirri approach. And her research was on violence. Now, I've not included the video in this video, but I'm giving you the link beneath the link to this video on our Moodle site. And if you're just watching this via the YouTube channel and you don't have access to the Moodle site, you know, the link, I still haven't worked this out yet. Which side is the... I'm not going to look. I'm going to turn around. Which side is it on? Oh, that's dreadful. I think it's on... It's not that. I'll point in both directions. The slide behind me. I'm destroying the magic. You're going to suspect that I'm not sat in a proper studio. Anyway, the slide. Just gesture. vaguely in a direction up over there behind me. And the YouTube link is on that slide, so just copy that, paste it into your browser. Now, in her work, she's outlined 5 ethical aspects her research that was informed by Dadirri. The first is that research only occurs by invitation. So you must be invited in by an Indigenous group. You can't impose your agenda on the Indigenous community.
I didn't think he was invited.
Second is reciprocity. Here, the researcher places themselves in time, place, and relationships with those who participate, and also returns resource materials back to the participants for their future use. The third, people involved in research must feel safe and be safe. Through Dadirri, safety is built upon confidentiality, and we're going to explore that a bit more in the next part, the final part of this lecture series 3. Now, Judy created safety from creating a ceremonial environment, and this was a space where people had a sense of sacredness and ritual as part of the research process. Now, another part of the safety in her project was people choosing their own interview sites.
I am not going in there.
Now, this is something we've kind of touched on previously, making participation as easy for your participants as possible. So here, Indigenous people might choose to talk by a riverbank. They might also want others to be present with them. Now, this is a really important part of people feeling safe, particularly people who have a history of being oppressed and marginalized. Having other people there that they know can be a really good way of establishing safety. And it's a good thing to offer when you're negotiating how and when you might conduct your interviews. Now, the fourth is that research is not just about gathering data nor looking from a pathologizing perspective, but it's part of a process of change as people find new meanings and support. And this is tied to that notion of co-constructed knowledge. Dadirri says it's not just the co-creation of knowledge, but also the co-creation of change. Interviews don't end at the end of the interview. That's often just the start of the process of social change.
The end of one story is merely the beginning of another.
When I do research, it's an important thing to factor in for me. My preferred method is action research and participatory action research. In relation to Indigenous research, it's also particularly taking a focus on trauma and healing from trauma and healing. So the research process needs to be focused on helping people engage in a healing process. It's a clear remit of the research. And that focus can often be a process where the researcher reflects back to the group what was being said. And this is the fifth principle, helping people to understand their pain by reflecting back to people what they've said to us in terms of how they've described their experiences. So click on the YouTube link on the Moodle site, or else copy and paste the link on this slide. What was that? I was referring to... Oh, right. I would have fixed this in post-production. I was doing all of this to a slide that actually was the next slide on. But anyway, hopefully everything will look seamless. And I'll put this slide on right at the point I was gesticulating towards it. And I've just put it on again. I shouldn't have said all of this to you, should I? This should be in a monologue. What am I doing? If I have any sense, I'll just edit this out so I look at least a little bit professional in what I'm doing. So here we go. So the link. This is the important bit. The link, which is on this slide, somewhere behind me. Copy and paste that into your browser. And watch Judy's talk. So, click on the link. I've overcomplicated it. Click on the link in the Moodle site where I've given you the direct link to that YouTube video. So, I will see you in part 6. I'm gonna have a bath and I'll come back when I'm refreshed. But part 6 is the final part of lecture 3. And we're going to delve a bit deeper into ethics. So, till then, ta-da.